We're much more here to learn about LocalLogic. I have Pierre here, who is going to be giving me some great insights about what the team over at LocalLogic is doing, who are they targeting, and how they're helping them to improve their performance. So Pierre, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, man. Pleased to be here.
Yeah, so maybe, I didn't give too much of an insight about what LocalLogic is all about. Maybe you can give us, a roundabout in your words, what it's all
Yeah, for
about.
sure, man. We're a location intelligence platform. We were founded by urban planners and data scientists. Basically, we quantify the sense of place for any given location. Like, what's it like to be in any given location? We have about 20 billion unique data points, which makes us one of the largest unique location data sets in the US and Canada. And with that data, we build predictive analytics for consumers and real estate professionals as they make decisions in their purchasing or investing in real estate or renting.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So could you tell us maybe so that people can understand the company a little bit better? Maybe you could tell us something, interesting about the company, maybe the amount of clients you're working with, maybe the amount of visitors on the page, or maybe, reviews or prices.
Sure. Yeah, we work with a lot of national, portals. So our clients include brands like Zumper, Redfin, Realtor.ca, Remax.com, Remax.ca, et cetera. So mostly large websites. And then we also work with developers and real estate brokerages in the US and Canada.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually about that who asked it. How would you define sort of like the typical client for LocalLogic?
Yeah, typical. It's going to be a real estate based business that has usually a public face. Although that's not a requirement, but most of our clients are real estate websites, or folks who have websites that attract real estate consumers. Again, whether it's for rental, for sale, et cetera. And then we also work with developers because our data really is location intelligence data. We just apply it in different ways depending on the use case. So if it's a consumer use case, they use it a different way than a professional use case.
Could you give like one example of a professional use case just so that the people can get a good idea?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So a developer usually has two questions that they're trying to answer. As an example, with a real estate developer, I have a site. What do I do with it? Or I have a use. Where is a site where I can build it? So I'm building senior family housing. Where should I build senior family housing to get the highest and best use of that real estate to best impact that city? Or I have a piece of real estate. How do I reposition that asset? Or how do I, maximize my operating income for that asset? Maybe by rethinking, retail, rethinking the layout of the building, rethinking, other factors around the property that they may own. That's on the developer side. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes it very clear, very tangible to understand. Since you mentioned like real estate websites being sort of the typical users, what would be the main acquisition channel? Like how is LocalLogic, winning those folks as clients?
It's pretty interesting. We have an interesting story. So we started out, how we came onto the scene was through a hack day. And at that hack day, we won the hack day for a major real estate portal. And because of that, instant, immediate exposure to the real estate landscape, it was pretty quick for other real estate portals to see our data and our tools. And then they started to just ask for it. So a lot of it is very organic growth in terms of people seeing our products. No different than how you might see Google Maps on somebody's site and say to yourself, oh, I should have Google Maps on my site, or something to that effect, right? And so you just go click through and you explore how you add this to your site. And that's one of the biggest ways that we, grow. Obviously, we also do outbounding and enterprise, conversations, but for the most part, these major, websites tend to see us in play on their peer set and their competitors, and they start thinking about how to add that data in a unique and malleable way to their brand, which is also what we specialize in. So it doesn't look the same.
Okay, so they're basically discovering it by themselves through other pages quite a bit. Interesting. Okay, yeah. And what role would you say does the website then play for client generation?
We have an interesting amount of organic inbounds that come through our site. We are improving, we haven't really invested in the marketing side. Being a startup, being early stage, very common. You focus on your product, you focus on your team, you focus on your core. We just hired a head of marketing. She's wonderful, and she's rethinking our brand positioning, our messaging, and we have a new head of operations also who's working on the technical infrastructure and the back end, so we can better understand the users coming in and how we can really give them what they're looking for when they come to our site. So we, similar to what you talked about, we have our user journey, and we're really trying to optimize that user journey as they're on our site.
I see. Since maybe one or two more follow-up questions on the page before we're learning more about the business. What would you consider the main strength of the website as it is today? Is it the ability to convert somebody if they come? Is it the quality of leads that it produces for your team? Is it the experience that you provide?
I think we're in a complete growth stage right now on the website. I wouldn't say it does anything particularly like fantastic. That's almost the good news in a sense. There's a lot of upside on the website. We've gotten better with the messaging. We've gotten better at showing people where things are, how to find us, what we do. But I think the next iteration actually coming out in the next week. I don't know when this is going to go live, but by early November or end of October, this week or next, we should be shipping sort of like the next, fresh refresh of the site, which will start bringing us forward to the future of our site. So I think today, it has a lot of opportunity still, and the best thing it does is provide a spot for people looking for us to get in contact with us, right, and get enough information to pique their curiosity, but we're going to improve on that so we actually can deliver more on the website.
I see. And since you're working on it, what is like sort of one thing that, at least from your perspective, you see where there's like a specific room for improvement? Is there anything in particular that you have in mind? You mentioned the messaging before.
Yeah. I think our product pages have a long way to go. We have a very beautiful product, and we're not really showing it that much, right? And we have a very engaging product, and we're not really showing it that much. And so I think we need to close that gap. I also think that we have a lot of people coming to our site with different needs that we're not addressing, and we need to really identify those needs well and make sure that we address those needs on our own site. And so a lot of the changes what we're doing is to sort of set us up to understand those needs and understand what we need to present to them.
I see. If we're coming back to the product, right? For everybody who's listening in, what would you say is sort of the main competitive advantage, right? If they're starting to compare and maybe positioning yourself a little bit, what would you say is the main competitive advantage?
We have very unique data. And we also have a very unique way of presenting that data that's clearly effective in the real estate space. And it's not just data. I shouldn't say it's data. That's actually the wrong word to use. It's really the insights. We have results. We just have data. We have an analysis of that data, and that's what we provide to our clients, and that's what they provide to their end users. And those insights are really key in helping somebody in a second understand their location. Our clients are seeing increases on conversion, 36%. On their own landing pages once they install our data set as an example. We also see clients who have an increase somewhere between 30 and 50% of the location that people are looking at based on our heat mapping experience that we built. And it's all built on this unique data set. So that's the answer.
So it's in a way also somebody can think about it as sort of an enhanced data set that also aims to increase the conversions on the pages.
Oh, without a doubt. That's the biggest. I mean, look, if you have a real estate or a website, what you care about is time on site, page views, people staying, reducing your bounce rates, increasing the conversions that you care about, whether a conversion is saving a listing, contacting an agent, signing up for an email alert, whatever the conversion metric that the website has to offer. We definitely are very proud of impacting those important metrics.
Very good. And what is your experience in sort of communicating those values to the real estate market, right? Because I'm assuming there might not necessarily be always digital marketeers. Like, what's the communication?
Yeah, we focus on the enterprise, larger partners, and that way, we aren't trying to convince somebody or explain something, right? Like, they usually understand that they have traffic. They already understand these things. They understand the metrics. So it's not a very difficult conversation, right? We have a very easy way to beta test, to A/B test. We can validate the impact of the products without the client paying anything. So they can come in, they can experience results, and then they can go invest in it. So yeah. So I think I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no,
But
for sure, for sure.
yeah.
You mentioned they might be able to try it. What would be a typical sort of journey for a customer starting with the product looking like for everybody who's listening and who might be interested? What would be the
Yeah.
typical steps they go through?
Anybody comes to our site, they can actually add one of our core products for free to their
Hmm.
site for under 10,000 loads a month.
Hmm.
So you can go through the flow. It says add to your site, and then they'll get local content, which is a widget, and they can take that code, put it onto their site, and then they'll be able to implement it immediately and see the difference that it does to their user base, and how their users interact with their site.
Very good. If we would look behind the curtain of LocalLogic, you mentioned already you hired a marketing head of marketing recently. How would a lead be handled that is coming in, right, between marketing and sales?
It's one machine, so we run it under the growth organization,
Hmm.
and so it's a very seamless process. We're very coordinated, very aligned. The goals are the same. There's no like strange marketing goal that's different from the sales goal. Like
Gotcha.
it's one goal. It's one goal. So that's one of the key things I believe is really crucial in having aligned or like organizations. So you're not trying to do two different things. So yeah, fundamentally we have automations built in that allow the client to do what they want to do as much as they can, and we're working on that. That's one of the things that we're working on, is being able to really allow them to go as far as they can without us having to get involved, so that they can have the modern buying experience. Nobody wants to get sold. Nobody wants a sales pitch. And we have trust in our product. So we have salespeople, but they don't have to really go out there and sell. Really what they're doing is guiding and helping folks make decisions on things that they already want, right? I want to add this to my site. I'm looking for data. I'm looking for information.
Yeah.
How do we do it, right? So really it's about, making it really easy for them to come in, experience what they need to experience. And then our team does the appropriate follow-up based on where they are in that journey, whether they've asked for the token, whether they've installed the token, whether they use the token. And then by token, I mean the implementation, whether they've gone through that flow, and we can sort of treat them where they are, right? Meet them where they're at.
Mm-hmm. So I can summarize that everybody who heads to your page can get started in trying it out to limit visitors for their own page.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Totally.
Great. I would like to switch gears a little bit and talk about you personally as a leader. What type of content do you consume, and how do you educate yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. I read a lot. In the space that we're in real estate, I consume a lot of information about real estate, so that we're aware of what's happening in the market and in the industry, the tech side of the business as well. Then the sales and marketing side, all the famous, popular things that are out there, I always, take a look at, whether it's, Sales Loft or HubSpot or whoever's putting out content on the latest metrics for SaaS companies, the latest metrics for sales orgs, pricing modeling, things like that. I'm always looking at information that comes across. LinkedIn is a great source, obviously, of people sharing content. So I tend to follow my friends and peers that I built up over the years, and anything that somebody I trust shares, I will read. And especially if I know what their organization is about, their sales style, their belief in problem, consumer focus or client focus. So those are the folks that I pay attention to, and I also share content myself. So whatever, it's a very, I think the sales community, especially in tech, tends to be very helpful to each other, I find, and there's a lot of great content out there.
I see. And what would be a topic that you would have recently researched? Like anything where you sort of really focused on?
Yeah, no, we were looking at pricing pages recently. We were looking at pricing pages, looking at, really the key metrics you want to look at as you're building orgs from scratch. What are some of the key, leading indicators that you can track when you don't have a business, right? When you're building a new business, like what are some of the things? And obviously I have experience in this. This is my fourth startup, but it's always good to see what others are doing and what the latest, methodologies are to understand if you're if you're hitting on the right tone. There's always the common stuff. I'm always looking for, a new tactic. Also, lead gen today, and there's not much out there on this, but like, what do you do in a non-email marketing world?
Mm-hmm.
And, how do you build brand and how do you build inbounds when you don't have the same tools you had 5 years ago, where you could do a lot of cold email outreach
Mm-hmm.
and not be in a predicament, right? I never was a spammer, but I definitely used email lists and sent relevant content, never sent annoying spam to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's one of those things where like, you can't even do that today anymore, right? You really can't use an email list even in a gentle way, like you used to. And so trying to hack and figure out new methodologies to outbound and create and discover intent that's not directed towards you, and try to get that intent is something that I'm actively looking at.
And what are ways that you find interesting, sort of, as alternatives to what you were describing?
We're doing it right now. You're doing it. I've also started doing it. I think I'm on my 5th or 6th week of doing a weekly stream, and and it's done really, really well for top line brand. Brand follows and things like that. So we're seeing some. It's early in the process. It's only been 5 weeks, but I think we're learning a lot here about how to get organic attention for the company, and I think that's something that, again, we've just started investing in marketing too. So I think over the next year we'll probably have a much different curve.
Very good. Since we're coming to an end of the interview, I would like to jump into our rapid fire questions. It's only a couple of short questions and 1 or 2 word answers.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Very good. What's the last book you read?
Last book I read. It's on my shelf. Last book I read. I'd have to go with like a reread. This is a book I reread regularly. It's probably the best book. It's Cialdini's Influence. I read that book regularly, and it's one I always reference. It's just core to everything.
It's just the best books. The ones that you reread are probably the ones to recommend.
Yeah, that's the book. Everything else is like interesting books, but that's the one I care to share.
What's the one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Growth.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be one thing that you want to have fixed for your company?
No boundaries in technology. One thing I want to fix for my company. Well, that's an interesting question. No boundaries in technology. That's a tough one. I mean, I would say, I don't know. It might be something really boring, like product delivery or something. I don't know. I'm not too sure. That's a tough one.
Okay, no worries. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
Growth.
Very good. I see a pattern here.
Yeah.
If today would be your first day working on LocalLogic, and I think it's very interesting because you mentioned you have already been, setting up other companies previously, what would be one advice that you would give yourself?
There's a couple things I think. If there was advice I'd give myself, one is move to Canada sooner. I did move here after 6 months or so working here, or 7-8 months working here. So move here sooner. I think it would have been much better. I think 2 is the space I'm very aware of the space. I've been in real estate tech for many years. During my time here, we have started to go after this multifamily developer space. I think it would have been great to dig into that really early in my first 6-8 months here. Probably wasn't as obvious then. I think the third one is prepare for a pandemic. I mean, that's probably the first one. Prepare for a pandemic.
Very good. Pierre, I really appreciate that you were part of Pathmark Presents today. I want to give you the last word, right? If somebody forgets everything about this interview and everything that we talked about, what would be one thing that they should remember about LocalLogic?
If you need location data for anywhere in the US and Canada, you should talk to us.
Very good. Thanks for being part of the show.
That's it. A pleasure, man.